Greetings and welcome to our 2020 virtual celebration of Christmas on the Farm at the Pennsylvania German Cultural Heritage Center at Kutztown University. Although the holidays may look a little bit different this year for many families, we are excited to showcase our region's cultural holiday traditions in art, music, foodways, and folklore. My name is Patrick Dunmoyer, and I'll be your host for this virtual celebration. We begin our cultural programming today with a special studio visit and performance from Benjamin Rader, an artist and musician who lives and works in the Pocono Mountains of Northeastern Pennsylvania. As a speaker of Pennsylvania Dutch with a transatlantic family, Ben's work weaves the geometry, poetry, faces and places of the culture into unique compositions, both visual and musical. Today, we are delighted to join Ben for a visit to his studio where we can see and hear his visionary works.
Gute Dag, alle. Hey everyone, my name is Benjamin Rader and I'm a Pennsylvania Dutch artist and musician. And right off the bat, I would like to thank everyone involved for inviting me to be part of this year's Christmas on the Farm. You know, obviously we're doing this virtually this year. And I know it's always great to see everybody every year and say hello and sample a little bit of the culture firsthand. But at the same time, I think this is a great opportunity for people to share a new perspective on their work, kind of show where they create, what they do in their creative space. And so you kind of get a more of a behind the scenes type view of the work itself, which is an interesting look as well. First, I would like to say a little bit about my family's background and why maybe that would be attributed to why I make the work that I make. But we're from Bethlehem and Allentown originally, and my family came over in about 1723 with the Moravians and kind of stayed put for a couple hundred years. And then about 70 years ago, my grandfather moved the family up to Monroe County. We're not far from the West End, and so the duchies over there would still refer to my family as Evo Barrio, which means people from over the mountain, people from the Lehigh Valley. So I guess it takes a little while to establish roots up here, but maybe in a couple more generations we'll be one of them. But anyhow, what I'd like to do is first I'm going to kind of go around the room piece by piece and maybe explain a little bit about what's behind that particular piece, what it means to me. There is, as you can see, I try to incorporate things that I know, things that are familiar to me. So growing up in a Pennsylvania Dutch household, my grandparents spoke a little bit of the dialect here and there. They never taught their kids, so that was something important for me to kind of bring back into the scene with my children, was the dialect. And you see a lot of hex signs. That was pretty normal to see around the house growing up. And so rather than searching for material to paint, it kind of just comes a little easier to paint what you know. The landscapes that I paint are all places right around my house, places that I see daily, weekly, quite often that have impressed upon me enough to paint them. And then I'm going to play a couple songs, and my music, just to kind of explain that a little bit, is contemporary compositions, but I write all of my lyrics in the dialect. And the reason that I do that is that I think it's really important for our community, young people, to do what they can to create something new, so that anyone that's interested, as the years go on, in learning about the Pennsylvania Dutch culture or language, there's always something new for them to find. There's always new material. It's not I don't want it to be a static culture. And the great thing about that is that I'm definitely not alone in that thought process. There's a lot of young people right now doing a lot of great things for the community and the culture. So, with that being said, I'm going to start going from piece to piece. Before I start that, if you have any questions about the work, or if you would like to see, um, you know, uh, the work online, I do sell prints online. I sell the originals online. But if you just kind of want to go and check it out or have any questions, my website is www.benjaminrader.com. And there you can find all my stuff. So, anyhow, thank you again, and let's get started. So, I'll do a quick walk around the room, kind of show piece by piece. Typically, all these paintings aren't up here. This is usually just my workspace. And so, just to kind of show you the workspace, I always have my Pennsylvania Dutch calendar hanging. I keep a couple mementos from home, some family stuff. Like this is a buttermark that I guess my great grandfather made. So you see the hex signs were kind of something that we always had around here and there. And then I keep some of my great grandmother's eggs that she made every Easter. She always wrote a little saying in Dutch around it. This one says, let's see, een kleine bus maakt viel Sache Gute. So a little kiss makes everything okay or everything good. And this one says, bleib herrlich, und dann und gesund alle Tag. So be happy and healthy every day, 1971. So I kind of keep some stuff around. This is the key that I always keep from my great-grandfather's woodworking tool chest. So just a couple family things. Keep them in mind when I'm painting. This painting is of Herbert Friedrich Tiefel. He was a big part in putting on the Grunzau Lodge in Bockenheim, Germany. They did that, I guess, 2 Februaries ago. So kind of bringing a tradition that we took from our homeland over here, Groundhog Day, and he kind of brought it back where it's from. So I thought it was very important to document that and paint him as an important figure in keeping the culture alive. And so just to kind of show some details of the piece, the hex sign's up there it says Bockenheim, and then down here Nummer 19, and that's the number of the Groundhog Lodge, Nummer 19. And so that's that. So let's move on to the next one. This painting I did from a picture that my father-in-law that he took while walking. This is near his house. There's kind of a chapel up on top of this real steep hill. And as you go up the winding path, there are the Stations of the Cross and these little markers going all the way up the hill. And so it was just such a beautiful picture. I had to paint it, all the snow on the ground. And it was very inspiring. So you see, since it's the Stations of the Cross, kind of has a spiritual feeling to it. That's all the iconography type decoration behind it. Just to show some details here. This one's kind of real thick with the paint. Just going around there. So this one's been shown at a show in New York, actually, a couple years back. I was accepted to a gallery show there. Definitely one of my favorite landscapes. And then my work area, you see that nothing is off limits as far as what I wash my brushes off on. Paint everywhere. I make a huge mess. My wife loves it when I step on a tube of paint and then track that through the entire house. As you can imagine, that's fun for everyone. But this is the painting I'm working on now. This is a painting of Hunter Yoder, who's also a fantastic Pennsylvania Dutch artist. This is actually one of his pieces that I'm using for kind of the main hex sign here. And I plan to put a really cool poem that he sent me over in the bottom as far as the writing, translated it into Dutch. But still a lot of work to do on this one, but that's the most fun part. This is a painting I did of my ancestral farm, my family's ancestral farm in Allentown. Sadly, that barn burned down in the 70s, lightning struck it. But this is done from an actual picture. And this is my great-great-grandfather and his dad and then his uncle. These were the hex signs that used to hang on that barn. And around it, it says, Geschlafene Mansleit, Ungedier, Ware nimi do zu mir. And that kind of translates as, you know, Geschlafene Mansleit, Ungedier, like sleeping people and animals, but meaning, you know, people who've passed away, things long gone. It was never dead to me, which kind of means, you know, that stuff is inside you, whether you acknowledge it or not. It's always a living thing in the family. And so the frame, as with most of them, is just kind of made from some of our barnwood lying around. I don't like paying for expensive frames, so if I can make it, you know, cut a few right angles, good to go, free frame. And it kind of adds, I think, to the paintings, because that also means something, you know. It comes from our stockpile here. And then this painting is done from my viewpoint, from where I paint at the barn my studio is in, looking across the lake here to our house. And so every night that I come up to paint, you know, if I take a break, go outside, that's what I see. Some of the hex signs here. And the hand went in there, not because I had planned to do it. You know, you see the moon phases here. But the hand went in there because I got a ton of blue paint on my hand. And I didn't want to let it go to waste, so I put a little more on and figured I'd see what that looked like. So mistakes are usually how the composition of a painting actually comes together. This painting is of Carson Kressley, so this is part of the series of portraits of people that, in my opinion, still mean a lot to the community in their own way. And in this instance, you know, I knew who Carson Kressley was from TV, and then as you kind of maneuver through the community at different events, you know, people seem to be very much in tune with his background and his connection to the Pennsylvania Dutch community. And, you know, on his social media, a lot of times he'll post hex signs, stuff like that. So it seemed he's a very important part of the keeping the culture alive, in that people within the community still they appreciate that aspect, that he's still very based in his home. I thought that was really cool, so thought it should be documented. But the frame I made out of some walnut we had around. Just routed it out. Some of the details of the painting. And some of the writing up there. And then down here, just kind of routed out his name. So I won't go into too much detail on all of them. Just kind of show these three real quick. This is a landscape that does not exist. Kind of just made this one up. But just familiar scenes you might see on a barn. This one is actually my viewpoint from my house. So I left out the tree line in the front. I thought it looked a little cleaner without it, but basically that's what I see when I wake up, so can't complain about that. Some of the detail here. And then this one is of my favorite spot on our property. It's a little bridge, creek runs through it. But yeah, for some reason I can never get enough of going back there. So might as well document that in a painting as well. Some of the detail here. I like to layer the colors, let one layer dry and kind of put another on top. It was an awesome sunset that day. Next to our kind of family portraits. This is my son and I, Hendrik, and you see up in the frame it says on top and the bottom die Zukunft, so the future. So this kind of has a couple personal things like the Moravian star up top, you know, kind of the family history there, why we're over here to begin with, I suppose. And just some of the detail work here. This one was a real fun one to do though. And then the frame, just cut out some rosettes and inlaid some cedar into the pine. Kind of 4 different panels put together. And then this one is of my wife, Sonia. And this, you know, obviously this one's another landscape that's kind of fabricated. Just made some hex signs. Show some of the detail work here. There she is. And this one here, this is a big one, is a distal fink, which you see a lot of time in hex signs, but I kind of wanted to not stylize it, do more of a realistic one. Just kind of combined some of my favorite hex signs there into one big piece. So this is three different canvases kind of framed into one. Once again, using the barn wood there. Show some detail. And then just always have some of my kids' paintings down here. That's from my son Hendrik. That's a painting Wolfgang, my other son, did of he and I in front of the barn. And then this is my absolute favorite. This is from Wolfgang. He painted, he said, it's me in front of our house, angry on a work call. There's another kind of just fabricated scene. Sometimes I'll do that as a little exercise, get the imagination going. And then this one is of Bethlehem steel. I've painted Bethlehem steel before, kind of from the other vantage point from the river. And, but it's such an interesting complex. It's real fun to paint. So I did a little less realistic this time, more of kind of just the feeling of it. And a cedar frame there.
Nehme bis Herde came. Wir laufen Schritt für Schritt. Und die Familie, die ist nah daheim. summer in Red. Bin ne kein Wettermann, doch seh ich, wo hier der Wind bloß. Bin ruhig wie man sollt. Voll da, wo Auge plötzlich Action tut. Da ist am nächsten sehr stot. Na, der Boss vom Boss, aha, aha. Er sagt mal, sind ihr so frei, wie los uns zu sein. Na, haben wir just ein bisschen Zeit, für evaluieren, was im Komma ist. Geduld, das hab ich genug. Ich bin am Border, wenn du ready bist. Sommer kommt bald und wird das Ding vorbei. Geduld, das hab ich genug. Ich bin am Border, wenn du ready bist. Sommer kommt bald und wird das Ding vorbei. Es ist ein Trubel, Schule sind leer, alle bleiben daheim. Der Arbeitsplatz ist auch geschlossen, dir fest zu. Was kann man da drum do? Haben wir selber mal nicht kennen, weil wir nehmen das an. So ist leicht, sie ist schwer, die Belohnung ist groß. Wir müssen her zum Boss nach. Zeit. Na, haben wir just ein bisschen Zeit für evaluieren, was im Kommen ist. Geduld, das hab ich genug. Ich bin an Bord, wenn du ready bist. Sommer kommt bald und wird das Ding vorbei. Geduld, das hab ich genug. Ich bin an Bord, wenn du ready bist. Sommer kommt bald und wird das Ding vorbei. Geduld, das hab ich genug. Ich bin an Bord, wenn du ready bist. Sommer kommt bald und wird das Ding vorbei. So wie man Schuhe auszieht, wenn man reinkommt. So wie man kocht Nudeln immer mit Salz. So wie man isst, zusammen obits nach Schaffe. So wie Bruder du man immer mit Schmalz. Zusammen sind wir froh, sind wir zusammen wunderbar. Haben wir zusammen was gebaut, guter Tag, Dali da. Haben wir die Entscheidung, haben wir zugestimmt. Regelmäßig alle da, alle Woche, alle Jahr. Na, es kann gut sein, ich zeig es dir zu wenig, du setzt nämlich Zweifel. Und gleich wie die Sache, wo ich alle Tag am Du bin, für Leber besser greife. So ist mein Lieb für dich, sicher als die Sonne in den Himmel. Aha, so ist mein Lieb für dich, sicher als die Sonne in den Himmel. so wie der Hufeiser über der Dir hängt. So wie man tut Eric immer mit Fleiß. So wie der Stadtmensch Aricherlee fehlt. Doch der Landsmann hat sei Greis. Sammer sind wir froh, sind wir zusammen wunderbar. Haben wir zusammen was gebaut, guter Tag, Dali dort. Haben wir die Entscheidung, haben wir zugestimmt. Regelmäßig alle dort, alle Woche, alle Jahr. Na, es kann gut sein, ich zeig es dir zu wenig, du setzt nämlich Zweifler. Und gleich wie die Sache, wo ich alle Tag am Du bin, für Leber besser greife. So ist mein Lieb für dich, sicher als die Sonne in der Himmel. Aha, so ist mein Lieb für dich, sicher als die Sonne in der Himmel. So ist mein Lieb für dich, sicher als die Sonne in der Himmel. Aha, so ist mein Lieb für dich, sicher als die Sonne in der Himmel. So ist mein Lieb für dich, sicher als die Sonne in der Himmel. Aha, so ist mein Lieb für dich, sicher als die Sonne in der Himmel. The next one is called Vuma Vuna, and that's of course about Pennsylvania. And just kind of a positive commentary on the place that we live and how lucky we are to live here. So. Nach ein schwerer Tag, wie schön es ist, wenn ich daheim gekommen bin. Die Kinder springen auf, die lachen laut, die Tiere sind auf oder just gebaut. Hämmer Glück, wo wir wohnen, du Hämmer Platz, wo wir wohnen, aha. Das Land ist schön, die Leute sind nett, es ist der Heim, wo wir wohnen, aha. Hämmer Glück, wo wir wohnen, du Hämmer Platz, wo wir wohnen, aha. Das Land ist schön, die Leute sind nett, es ist der Heim, wo wir wohnen, aha. Dort noch Fröhlichkeit, nach dem Trubel kommt noch Herrlichkeit. Es ist easy, wenn man sucht in sein eigener Lauf, sein Weltpreis, aber nicht das davon. Aha, Hämmer Glück, wo wir wohnen, Hämmer Platz, wo wir wohnen, aha. Das Land ist schön, die Leute sind nett, es ist der Heim, wo wir wohnen, aha. Hämmer Glück, wo wir wohnen, du Hämmer Platz, wo wir wohnen, aha. Das Land ist schön, die Leute sind nett, es ist der Heim, wo wir wohnen, aha. This song is called Shafa Shafa, and
My wife is from Germany. She's from Swabia, and I was having a conversation with her grandmother when she was still alive about what's going on at home, and she kind of gave me some advice. Schaffe, schaffe, Heisli baue is what they say over there, and she just kind of put work into perspective and balancing that with family and everything like that and what's important. So this is schaffe, schaffe.
Wir sind schon einmal im Stub am Hocker gewesen, nachmittags früh, hat nämlich geschwätzt, Katzlich komm immer dahin. Die hat mir auch gegönnt, schon stark in mein Auge, und hat ruhig gefragt, wie läufst das daheim mit dei Arbeit-Familie und so gleich. Schaffe, schaffe, Heisli baue, einmal etwas anderes, das lauschst du doch ab. Ich kann dir raten, hab nicht kein Geld vergeben, und wenn du mein Rat willst, ich geb, was ich hab. Schaffe, schaffe. Ich hab das jahrelang geconsidert, und es kommt mir rein, als lieber hat wert. Wenn man schafft sich nicht ab, doch schafft freilich und stetig, es gibt blende Zeit für Schaffe, schaffe, schaffe. Aha, schaffe, schaffe, Heisli baue, einmal etwas anderes, das lauschst du doch ab. Ich kann dir raten, hab nicht kein Geld vergeben, und wenn du mein Rat willst, ich geb, was ich hab. Schaffe, schaffe.
Muss sie denn zum Städtli hinaus, Städtli hinaus, und du, mein Schatz, bleibst du. Wenn ich komm, wenn ich wieder komm, kehr ich ein, mein Schatz, bei dir. Kann ich auch nicht immer bei dir sein, hab ich doch mein Freude an dir. Wenn ich komm, wenn ich wieder komm, kehr ich ein, mein Schatz, bei dir. Weine nicht, wenn ich weiter wandern muss, als wär mein Lieb vorbei. Sind da draus, da Mädel so viel, lieber Schatz, ich bleib dir treu. Denk nicht gleich, wenn ich die andere seh, vor mein Liebe vorbei. Evers Jahr,
The next one's called Mach's Richtig, and kind of talks about if you're going to do something, do it right, and also to kind of doing it right means to kind of take a step back every now and then and enjoy yourself. So it's Mach's Richtig. Hundsdauer und ich fühl mich mied. Schade ohne Baum und ich hock mich hin. Blätter gäb's so vom Boden schon. Und die Luft wird frischer nach mit aller Stunde. Blend die Rast und Ruhe hab ich gehabt. Steh ich wieder auf, gerade weg, spring ich fort. Guck mal dat übers Land. Wie viel Dauer, wie heit hab ich noch? Wenn du nimmst alles ein, dann machst du richtig. Die kleinen Sachen sind wichtig. Geld verdienen scheint dringend, aber was nix bringen. $500 Mund noch und 6, wenn ich Glück hab. Im Busch ringsrum, Zacker, Oberbebe sich so eng. Ich fang nämlich an mit dem Weg oder Ziel. Den Kern hab ich gepflanzt und ich holt, was ich will. Mir fehlt fertig und der Weg war dicht. Und ich hoffe, wenn die Zeit kommt, ich tu das richtig. Die kleinen Sachen sind wichtig. Geld verdienen scheint dringend, aber was nix bringen.
Und Wolfgang, du da vorne, mach die Finger im Ohr. Du gehst das nicht hier. Okay. Das heißt Eigenzustand. Ich hab geträumt, die Ananas, wie alles war ganz still. Die Till, die war bei mir im Bett und ich war bei Till. Ich war als Nächte den gewesen, wie ich war jung und leer. Bei anderen Leuten im Bett zu sein, besonders bei mir. Ein Zustand, was war man, das ist weh. Bei anderen Leuten im Bett zu sein, besonders bei mir. Ich hab dich rumgedreht ins Bett und hab zu ihr gesagt, ich will gar nichts zu tun haben, mit dir das sag ich drauf. Ich will noch schlafen, lass dich gehen und geh ins Hammerbett. Ich will gar nichts zu tun haben mit deiner schlechten Idee. Zustand, was vor dessen Krieg, mit Anwählern im Bett zu sein, besonders bei dem Krieg. Ich will halt also viel zu mir, ich soll doch ruhig sein. Du bist ja 80 Jahre alt, warum bist du so schein? In nächster Kurve gehen wir schon eifrig zu der Nähe. Was sie in 50 Jahren sind, sind sie nicht so frei. Ein Zustand, was warmer dessen frei. Bei Henry Light im Bett zu sein, besonders bei der Nähe. Dann kriegt die Till mich an der Hals und lässt mich nämlich gehen. Sie macht mich bes und ich hab und bringt sie grad am Weg. Wenn du nicht bist, dann nenn ich dich und schmeiß dich aus dem Bett. Ich hasse es, ich quiss ich du, im Bett sei meine Nähe. Ein Zustand, was vor Mannes entbringt, bei Anwählern im Bett zu sein, besonders bei der Nähe. Ich mach auf die Nachbarschlatz und alles um mich still. Ich taste in meinem Bett herum, da war gar keine Till. Die Decke hab ich im Aurum gehabt, gedrückt war sie ganz breit. Ich war das erste Mal, was ich vor Weihnachten ging. Ein Zustand, was vor mir das entbringt, dann angelegt im Bett zu sein, besonders bei der Nähe. Ein Zustand, was vor mir das entbringt, besonders bei der Nähe.
Okay.
Kinder waren fröhlich am Spielen. Hier gehockt, ich schau an, am Gedanke verlieren. Einmal hab ich ja spielt wie mein Junge. Ein schönes Ding wie selbst. Es ist easy zu spielen. Gewitter kommt immer im Frühling, die Helling immer Mariets free. Sehe keine Zeit, weiß viele, aber die kommen immer noch einmal hin. Ich bin hoffnungsvoll. Es gegen Delio an. Ich reid mit Rebellen spelen, aber die kommen immer noch einmal hin. Natürlich ist es aber natürlich, die Helling immer Mary, it's free. Die sehe keine Zeit, weiß viele, aber die kommen immer noch einmal hin.
Thanks for watching, but don't go away. Coming up next, join Keith Brinsenhoff for traditional holiday folk music and Pennsylvania Dutch humor. This virtual celebration of Christmas on the Farm is brought to you by the Pennsylvania German Cultural Heritage Center at Kutztown University, committed to preserving and celebrating the unique folk culture, history, and language of the region.